лекция, в которой мы постараемся ответить на многие вопросы, куда должна в дальнейшем развиваться патентная аналитика, как она вообще используется сегодня. Но в самом начале хотел отметить, что на текущий момент времени есть такие два трека, которые в патентной аналитике существуют в сторону регионального развития. Первый — это инструмент франчайзи, который используется для того, чтобы создавать центры,
to design and develop centers, to accumulate experience, qualification, specialists, and such centers operate through the regions. Right now, we don't have a lot of them in Sverdlovsk region in Tatarstan, and we hope that this track will be developed. And the second track that I announced, referring to regional agenda, is the following: defining technical priorities, defining regional priorities, and how to bring them to the patent analytics sphere in terms of development of key technological segments for regional development, because their traditional production existing from the Soviet times, but we may expect another potential from this or that particular region, so we need to study this and develop. I don't want to spend time. I want to give the floor to our regional representatives. Let us start with the first presentation. Please meet Irina Ganieva, Minister of Science and Higher Education of Kuzbas. Irina Alexandrovna is ready to share on the experience in patent office in education. Dear friends, thank you, Rospatent, for giving this opportunity to the regions to share the best practices and to learn from each other. Intellectual property is indeed the opportunity to obtain a monopoly on your own technical solutions, logos, and immaterial values. In Kuzbas, we now define the dramatic decline of such activities and the applications to register patents. In our region, we lack the certification according to the international practice, and therefore we started working for a long-term perspective on development of intellectual property, patent activities, and how to certify and register intellectual property.
Спасибо. На что нажимать? Спасибо. Напомню, что в России создано.
I would like to remind that in Russia we have 15 educational scientific centers of a global level as part of the national program, and with different participants and omni-channel-based of support. We want to activate in our region the activities on registration and use of intellectual property. In order to do this, in 2022, based on autonomous non-commercial agency, we developed a dedicated center to provide support to the corresponding parties. You see the slide where we list the basic steps of this development. So this patent office is a physical entity.
Тоже чуть позже расскажу. И третье — это большая стратегия
digital patent office and the development of intellectual property environment in the region. This year, based on trilateral agreement between the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation and the Federal Service of Intellectual Property and the government of Kuzbas, we developed the strategy on development of intellectual property that is now going through the final stage of approval. We expect before the 1st of December to have this document approved. The implementation of the strategy will be provided through the new dedicated tailored program about region, the science of Кузбасс. It will start in 2022. It is approved by the government of Кузбасс and includes a dedicated program on our endeavors. Here we want to share on protection of intellectual property, focusing on development of intellectual property in our region. So we have support from our representative at the Federal Assembly, and herewith we prove our interest in including the issues and agenda on intellectual property into the agenda of public institutions. So we fight for the interests, and here we have higher education institutions and scientific centers, and we want to fight for their rights and how to protect their intellectual property. It is important to understand that we focus on work with industrial companies. We have 34 partners fighting for the protection of the intellectual property and rights. In the beginning of the project, it was stated that the qualification was very low in terms of the key players of the industry. Therefore, we started our activities with seminars and public awareness and training sessions, including the international legal practice. We work with patent attorneys, and we have best support from Rospatent and FIIP. And here I would like to cordially thank the professionals of FIIP and our dedicated specialists from this institution, how much support they give us. Thank you very much. Only within this year, we hosted 35 events of educational matter with over 500 participants. On a regular basis, we distribute information to over 1,000 correspondents. We also introduced an educational seminar as part of the mining exhibition, and Rospatent is a co-organizer of this event. I would like to name the highlights that come from the demand of business. How to register and protect the logo and trademark, what kind of subsidies exist when registering the brand and logo. Based on Patent Office, we created a digital office, the so-called digital patent office. And if it's possible, please start the video. We want to present our video on how our digital patent office works.
Вот так работает наш электронный патентный офис. Он позволяет не только подавать заявки на регистрацию на базе патентного офиса. Есть ИПТ, который также позволяет это делать, но и зарегистрироваться на образовательное мероприятие, получить консультацию по любому вопросу, который возникает у сотрудников вузов, научных институтов и индустриальных компаний. Еженедельно порядка 30-40 обращений к этому электронному патентному офису происходит. Таким образом, платформа управления интеллектуальной собственностью региона формирует механизмы эффективного управления интеллектуальной собственностью, создает условия creation of mechanisms of how to manage this industry, how to bring together efforts of the key players and how to upgrade the professionalism of the dedicated specialists, how to meet the demands from business. In order to bring more attention to this issue, we launch the contest, the best enterprise organization of work in the sphere of intellectual property, and will have awards. The above-mentioned work allowed us to unveil a number of problems. The first one, as I've mentioned, the low qualification. 80% of the products of our region, they are exported, and therefore we face risks. And here we understand that the basic industries in our region are machinery это очень актуально, когда речь идет о
and heavy
комплексных научно-технических
production.
проектах нашего
Then
научно-образовательного центра. Это, конечно, зачастую
this
надуманный страх
extra
перед
cost,
регистрацией интеллектуальной
then
деятельности вообще
another
под предлогом
problem is this
наилучшей защиты
fear
в режиме без
of
публикации, без разглашения, в режиме
registration
ноу-хау.
and
И
this
отсутствие
fear
практик
of
определения авторского
disclosure,
вклада и
this
распределения
protection of
доходов от
know-how,
передачи прав на
and then
объекты
distribution
интеллектуальной
of
собственности.
income
Вот эти проблемы, они,
after
конечно,
handing
отчасти
over the
снимаются за счет
rights
просветительской
for the
образовательной
intellectual
деятельности
property.
совместно с
Due
Роспатентом и
to
ФИПС.
public
Это особенно
awareness and
важно.
our
Но
training sessions and
дальнейшее
educational events
решение этих
together
проблем,
with
конечно, связано с
Роспатент
глубоким
and
консультированием
FIIP
профессиональным и,
allows
опять
us
же,
to
повышением уровня
mitigate these
образования
gaps
самих
and
специалистов
basic and
предприятий.
first
В конце хотелось бы отметить, что
of all,
в
in first
следующем году, в
hand,
2022
we
году, в
raise the
Кузбассе принято
awareness and the
решение провести
professionalism of the specialists.
Дни науки. Ну, мы традиционно
We
отмечаем в
decided
научной
to
среде такой
launch the
профессиональный праздник,
so-called
как Дни науки в феврале,
Days of
под
Science in
лозунгом
February. This is our
«Интеллектуальная
professional
собственность». То есть череда мероприятий
holiday.
пройдет.
The motto
Поэтому
will
с большим
be
удовольствием от лица правительства Кузбасса
intellectual
мне хотелось бы
property.
пригласить
This is
Роспатент
our
выступить
main
соорганизатором
focus, main
этого цикла
highlight. I would like
мероприятий
to
Дни
invite
науки в Кузбассе.
Роспатент
Мы
to
обязательно
become
официальное
a
приглашение пришлем, если
co-organizer. We'll
позволите.
send you
Ну
an
а коллег,
official
которые сегодня
invitation.
принимают участие в
And
нашей
the
аудитории, в
colleagues
мероприятии,
participating
я
in this
прошу следить
session,
за
I would
нашими
like
анонсами. Также
to
приглашаю
follow
в Кузбасс в
our
феврале 2022
announces, and
года
I
принять
invite you
участие
to visit
в мероприятиях,
Kuzbas
связанных с
in
интеллектуальной
February in
собственностью в рамках Дней
2022
науки.
to
Большое спасибо.
participate in events dedicated to intellectual property related to the Days
Спасибо
of
огромное
Science.
вам за
Thank you very much
рассказ
for
и
this very
потрясающие, на самом
dense
деле, достижения,
presentation and
в
for
том
your
числе и в цифровом
beautiful
оформлении вашего офиса.
results,
Ну,
and we are
такой
much impressed
прекрасный пример
how
того, как
you
можно
developed
организовать
this
работу
and
по патентной
organized
аналитике.
this digital
Безусловно,
patent
готовы включиться
office.
в ваше
Of
мероприятие,
course,
и
we
всех
are
призываем также их посещать и
able and
активно
we are willing to
участвовать. Ну,
contribute to your
безусловно,
events, and we encourage everyone
внедрение
to
интеллектуальной
participate.
собственности, говоря,
Indeed, intellectual
распространение системы
property and
интеллектуальной собственности
development
в
of
каждом регионе в
intellectual
нашей стране
property from the
сталкивается с
region to the
определенными
region
барьерами,
faces a
барьерами
number
технического
of
развития,
barriers dedicated
другими
to
другими
some technological
сложностями. И
limitations,
о
and
них нам сегодня расскажет
other
Губайдуллин Игорь Владимирович,
reasons
министр промышленности и
occur.
науки
And we would
Республики
like to give the
Мордовия, в
floor
одном
to
из
Igor
самых
Gubaydulin,
развитых
Minister of
технологических регионов нашей страны. Пожалуйста.
Industry, Science and New Technologies of Mordovia
Я,
Republic.
наверное,
Thank you
чуть-чуть
very
уйду
much.
если позволите, конечно, от
Thank you very
традиционного
much, and
формата.
I would like to
Наверное, не
not
так буду
follow the
много
traditional
рассказывать
format. I
о
will
светлом
not
будущем и
speak a
наших
lot
успехах,
about this
хотел бы
beautiful,
поговорить о
bright
проблемах, с которыми
future
мы
and
сталкиваемся.
our
И
victories and
пример не
results. I would
самого
like
большого
to
региона, я
discuss
думаю,
the
опыт можно
issues that we face, the
экстраполировать на большую
challenges,
часть
and our
нашей
region is
страны.
not that large, but we can
В преамбуле
upscale
своего
this
выступления я хотел сделать
experience through
отсылку
the
к пленарной
country.
сессии,
I would like to
где
start my
коллеги показывали очень
presentation with
информативные слайды,
coming
связанные
back to the
с
ideas brought by the plenary
развитием
session.
R&D,
Our
патентной
colleagues
активности
brought this
международных
information,
лидеров по,
R&D,
прорывным технологиям и
and
проектам.
this
Один из них, там, безусловно, история с 5G.
this
Ну, вот мы вроде
5G, for
говорим, там,
example,
патентная
case. So
аналитика,
we
да,
speak about
активно все
patent
это развивается,
analytics,
5G
we
инфраструктура, но
proactively
наш
develop
рынок
everything
оптического волокна
5G
сердце
infrastructure,
инфраструктуры
but
5G, которая
this
обвязывает базовые
core
станции.
of
7,3 миллиона
5G is
километров в год в
fiber.
стране прокладывается. В мире это 500 миллионов километров в год. Китай кладет 300 миллионов километров в год. Мы 7,3.
Let us speak about this fiber grids. In the country, we have 7.8 million of fiber per year, and globally it's 500 million of kilometers, and in China it's 300 million of kilometers. So we don't have national product, and we have 30% related to Chinese producers, and almost all the rest is international producers. And here we are saying that we have this 5G. Well, should we follow the global trend and watch how it is developed globally, or should we invent and do something ourselves? For example, with 5G, there is no access to the market. We fight for new standards of laying the infrastructure and how to do the ducts and how to implement this fiber production. You leave Saransk and go by train to Moscow, 15 minutes, and there is no network, there is no connection, and this is it. This is not even 5G. There is no internet. There is no any tower. So this is what we face, and it's very unfair that the slides and the plenary session do not present national products and producers. Speaking about our Republic Mordovia, Of course, we have results and endeavors and victories, and of course, we have our dynamics, and I think that the figures will be broad. But I can speak about our situation from both sides. The Republic of Mordovia, we have one of the highest shares of innovative products in the country, so from first sight it is good. But in terms of the volume of the industrial production, we are not the leaders. In terms of patent activity, we take the 7th place. But if we look at the registered properties, then we take the 14th place. So what figures should be brought to the slides? Good figures, bad figures? Are we good? Are we bad? So it's very difficult and complicated, and it's a matter how you interpret the figures. Of course, we reload our system, and our university is also reloading their approaches. But I want to set the trend in terms of patent analytics agenda and patent activities. Why should we do this? What are we doing for whom? Human resources. What is our main goal? The registration of the right or commercialization? Of course, it is not just about the people having the right. So due to our colleagues, we were able to investigate and assess the situation in the region. And I must say that it's the same system and situation from the region to the region. And when we have applications for registration from 29 to 40 years, it goes down. From 40 plus, it goes up. So this is the same as in demography. We have young specialists, they go to post-diploma education, they register their ideas, innovations, patents, then they leave the country. Those who get married and then they have their families, they stay. Then further on, they get older, and therefore we have these two reasons. The population gets older, and there is no positive infrastructure for young specialist professionals. We do not motivate them. And therefore, if we don't solve this issue with young specialist professionals, then the regions will continue to lose their younger population, their young specialists and professionals. And on business side, there is always a question, what kind of profit I gain today? I want this fast money. I want to have this profit, and then I want to go further. So this is about the patent activities. And we face the same question, the same problem as in Kuzbas. We have problems with human resources. We need professionals able to work with patent analytics and able to implement the solutions in the real life. Another case, I have this center of innovation, and there's only one person left. And I want to give this example, part of my situation, and we want to follow this structure in Mordovia. So we have a program on development of labor, and we have regional labor centers and competences centers. So this is not something new, but unfortunately it is very urgent for us. Within 2 months, from 4 federal experts, 2 experts left for Moscow because they have better salary there. In the regions, we cannot meet the expectations on the salaries. So where should we find new ones? Of course, we go to the university, we have new specialists. So for how long should we teach them? 1 year, okay, and then we get them through the accreditation. So this is the problem that we face. In terms of competences center, we now develop this topic, and this we want to transfer it into the rationalization center, and we want to get back to the practice of the Soviet Union, and then to turn to the rationalism that was the tradition of the former Soviet Union.
So we see the growth of patent activity at enterprises, but that is a long way to go through apprenticeship, and in terms of the IP in the regions, whatever digital services we introduce or however efficient we become into cutting red tape, and the question of the market. So who are we focusing on? Because the market in the regions is shrinking. Yes, the number of patents is growing, but then the number of people who can create those patents and apply for those, unfortunately, we are in the negative zone. And on top of that, we'll look into this strategy. Yes, the young scientists know how patent, and but the business, let's say in most cases, just don't turn a blind eye to them or just cannot hear. Or let's say if they take their hands on this technology, they just steal it. And of course, we have the fund of suggesting or helping innovations, and this fund, unfortunately, is not able to help because we have the practice of centers of nanotechnology, and one of the 13 centers is under our operation. So we somehow help them grow and cooperate and bring them together with the scientific community, because we have had, let's say, 100, cases there, and all of these cases were, let's say, born within this community that was organized, so we could not attract anyone from outside. So, of course, the reporting is great, but in fact, this is just doesn't work. We're just reloading. I don't want to, let's say, turn or press hard on anybody here, but I would like to share my personal view, and of course I would like to, let's say, yes, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but of course, you see, maybe there is like a fly in an ointment here, so that's my role here basically. But we have new head of the region in Mordovia, so we are, let's say, doing more and more towards IP, and now we're developing the new program for IP development, and we would like to thank our Tatarstan colleagues, and they have been helping and assisting us, and they've been introducing the program for IP, so we collected the best practices from the regions, those regions who have gained such practices and ready to share and help, and we want to stimulate some youth, and we see that we have great potential. And on top of that, the venture funds, we're kind of reloading them, and we're taking up the capacity of building this tool of financial support to young scientists. So yes, we have some grant programs, and but that's the only tool that we have. And how many regions do we have where we have business angels besides Moscow? In Tatarstan, let's say, doesn't have it. So because I lived and worked in Tatarstan, I know that area, and so we've been working in the same ministry with some of the colleagues in this room. And so the huge problem, the patent analytics, yes, but the assessment of the intangible assets of the businesses, the banks do not include it, and so you see when we get the loans, you don't get anything. So our fund for development of industry does not include that. So say they should have done that. So you see there are problems, and we're working on those, trying to put it in here in our practice. And I would like to, let's say, from Rospatent and from the agency of the Federal Institute for Industrial Property, to ask them for assistance, because that's a good asset to, let's say, bring in and use it as collateral. But nevertheless, if the state-run companies or companies that we receive from the state, and there are some challenges that arise from the money that was the state money or the budget money that went sideways off of the projects. And so you see some companies, the valuations of, let's say, millions and millions, and they they are almost like shell companies. So therefore, how do we assess those? And that's a big question mark there. So dear colleagues, please, let's not forget about the real life, and let's stay focused on who we're doing it for, and work, cooperate, collaborate with the universities and support young scientists, and build the creative workspace. Not in every region do we have those. We have an example here. There is some space that was freed up, and let's say because they became more efficient, so they build a creative industry for the youth, for building the space for young scientists. So not just in the labs, but there will be just one big manufacturing capacity adjacent to these, let's say, new, let's say, information space on their premises. And speaking about the analytics, of course, this is going to be one of those elements of the state-run program to develop the IP, and we need to stay focused there, and because together with external experts, we're putting together the strategy for building the region, but again, we're going to develop everything. But here I have the investment, and we have the assessments of the market, where do we need to go to, so what areas are the, let's say, the horizons for, let's say, or they would take some more years to arrive to those areas. So we're figuring out the niches which we're going to utilize and work on, and so that would be it for my presentation. And then thank you. So thank you very much.
Извините, поаплодируем скорее за действительно такие
Yes, and a round of applause for those highlighting of the problem points. Of course, we're ready to Rospatent, Ministry for Economic Development. We are ready to somehow provide our consultancy and assistance. And of course, the question is, it's not my role to take such questions, but still I would like to respond partially at least, because the, let's say, the manpower is very important, and the personnel and the growing, let's say, your local talents and those who leave for Moscow and stay there. Of course, that's a problem, and we need to see what's going on, and of course we need to, let's say, look and develop those who are ready for that. So we have 2 days here, and actually before this forum we had 40 students studying and going through some practices here and skill enhancements. And I'm sure that there will be people from your region as well who would participate in such seminars. Once again, thank you very much, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. Malayev, the head of the Karelian Republic of the Ministry of Industrial Development, and he's in charge of the innovation and development of the region. And so please provide the view of Karelia. So I'm sure that it will have a lot to learn from you. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. Igor, I had to speak about the problems. Of course, these problems are typical for all the regions, and so some smaller centers, not as big as those Moscow and St. Petersburg, but let's say the rather remote regions, industrial regions, and we have the great Republic of Karelia, our gem. So take a look and appreciate. And after such a spot of pleasure, so we are on the border with the European Union. We can study the international experience, and all those cutting-edge European tendencies, they are perceived by the business and communities in Karelia. And one of the main trends is the innovative activity in our republic. This is the structure of our economy. The region has the capacity to, let's say, for mineral production and the pulp industry there, and the capacities of our industry in the regional grows regional product is up on the screen. So we have the Karelian Scientific Research Institute and the university, and more than 70 businesses in our region position themselves on innovative, and they are involved in IT, electronics, and the processing industry, and the share of the, let's say, innovative products is about 3%, but nevertheless we are on the growing curve, and let's say when we speak about the industry and wood felling and wood processing, we're growing, and in terms of the machinery production with above 72%, and we're at the top of ratings in Rospatent, and when we have the growth over year 2019, more than 20% is the growth. And I would like to highlight only a couple of other numbers. So we're the leaders in the northwestern region of Russia in terms of the coefficient of inventor activity, and of course, so you cannot compete with St. Petersburg because they are, of course, the leaders out there. But in terms of the activity, so our activity has grown, and we are able to secure some good position there in the northwestern region. And our Petrozavodsk University, in terms of the rating among the top universities, ranks 23rd, 30th place on the rating of inventor activity.
Есть у нас очень интересные компании.
And we have some interesting examples of companies among those leaders of
Наши партнеры,
and our partners, I can name a few. Of course, we learn from them firsthand because they are being the exporter companies. MB Barbell is the leader in the Russian market, and even in the international market of sports equipment. Forbes estimates up to 70% of the Russian market. So these are the, let's say, working, let's say, even the NATO countries buy these street machinery for workout. And another company, which is called Yarmarka, that's quite surprisingly, the companies are looking for, or they're being based close to their markets, or with a point of entry where they tap into the raw materials, and they produce different mixtures of, let's say, grain. And we don't have a lot of grain in Karelia, but we are one of the leaders, the international leaders on such mixtures, and so we're present in more than 30 countries, and we're quite active partner in terms of cooperating with the universities and registering the IP rights.
Petrozavodsk University
is another platform, and I've been listening to my colleagues, and the universities are such centers of inventor activities, and these are the innovative enterprises. And there are some specialists who can work with the IP legislation, IP right, and in our region of the attorneys, we just don't have those. And there is a specialist who can do that. And he's gone through such rigorous training progress and process. And when we speak about this particular area, we need to grow our specialists and invest into bringing in attorneys. And here, of course, we have the pulp industry here, and the medicine, microelectronics, and nanotechnology, the food industry there. And the structure is up on the screen.
Также на слайде можно
And also, this slide
посмотреть
shows
рост
and demonstrates
количества
the growth of
МИПов и
the
оборота этих малых
turnover of
предприятий в
these
Казахстанском госуниверситете.
small
Есть
businesses
очень
that are
неплохие разработки,
under the
которые
aegis of
востребованы
the
не
university,
только в
and
Карелии, но
some
и
of the
в
technologies
других
in demand not only in
регионах
Karelia but
Российской
elsewhere in the
Федерации.
Russian
И,
Federation.
в принципе, университет, можно
And they
сказать,
think that
один из
university can be
единственных у
proud,
нас,
and it's one of those
скажем так, образовательных учреждений, который
educational
активно
institutions
занимается
that is actively
коммерциализацией
involved in
реально покупают
getting their
и
products in the market. And so, yes, they sell. Maybe these are not great numbers, as my colleagues can demonstrate from other developed centers, but nevertheless, they are growing. That's a good sign.
Ну, еще расскажу об одной
A couple of
компании,
words
с которой мы
about
активно сотрудничаем.
another company that
Я
we've been
сейчас
cooperating
немножко
with,
расскажу
and
о наших инструментах поддержки
about
таких
the
компаний, которые
tools to support
регистрируют
the
свои
companies
права.
that register their
Это
rights with
центр,
us. This is the
инженерный
Center of
пожарной
Engineering
робототехники
Center
ФР.
for
Это
Fire
инновационное
Equipment.
предприятие,
So this is an
которое
innovative
выросло из лабораторий, и
business
сегодня это
that
современное
once was a
машиностроительное
lab, but
предприятие,
now
которое
it's the machine
расширяется.
building
Сейчас уже
enterprise
строит
that is
второй завод в
building, and they're
Петрозаводске.
building their second
Один из
unit
ведущих российских
in
производителей
Petrozavodsk, and
роботизированных систем пожаротушения и
they
ствольной
produce the
пожарной техники.
robots, the fire robots, fire extinguishing
И перейду
equipment.
все-таки к механизму.
And in terms of the
Я думаю, что, может быть,
mechanism,
кому-то из коллег
I think
будет это
that some of
интересно.
the colleagues
Системе
might be
поддержки инновационной деятельности в
interested
Республике
in
Карелия.
what we do to support the innovative
Первое,
activity
у
in
нас
Karelia.
за счет регионального бюджета
So because we have the
есть ряд
regional
субсидий.
subsidies,
Сегодня предприятия,
several subsidies,
субъекты
and
малого и
now,
среднего
let's say, SMEs
предпринимательства
can
могут
get and apply
возместить свои
and
затраты
get
на государственную
the
регистрацию
support
объектов интеллектуальной собственности
in
или
terms of
на
the
подготовку
registry
и
of their
переподготовку
IP, or
специалистов в области интеллектуальной
their specialists
собственности.
who should
Такие
should
субсидии
go through skill
ежегодно
enhancement
предоставляются
seminars, and
предприятиям, и они являются
these
востребованными.
are the subsidies
Также есть
that are of
субсидия
high
на
demand,
реализацию
and there is a
мероприятий по
subsidy
разработке, созданию,
to
расширению производства инновационной продукции.
build
Также
a manufacturing line for some innovative product
конструкторских работ.
and
Сегодня вот
R&Ds. And
на пленарной
at the plenary
сессии
session,
звучало о том, что мы
we've
иногда
heard that
финансируем не те, не
sometimes
окры, да, мы тоже
the
здесь
kind
сделали
of wrong
определенную
investments
перезагрузку.
are done
Во-первых,
into
мы
not the right, let's say,
субсидируем те неокры,
technology,
которые
and of
уже
course the
завершены
R&D
и
that
которые
will be of high demand
востребованы предприятиями в
should be,
регионе.
of course,
Вот
invested
именно
into
такой у нас
heavily,
KPI.
and this is the
Также
KPI that we
одним из
set for
KPI
ourselves, and
является
one of those
необходимость
KPIs is
регистрации
to
интеллектуальной
register
собственности. Поэтому мы
IP.
вот
So
здесь
that's
такое решение приняли в
the
прошлом
kind
году
of
и
decision
видим
that was
его
made by
эффективность.
us, and
В
we
этом
see that the
году
efficiency of
на
that,
этом
and this
конкурсе
year
участвовали серьезные игроки,
alone we
которые
had
проделали
some
большую
good
работу.
players, and they did some
Еще
good job
одним
there.
инструментом,
And
как и
another
во многих
tool
регионах,
is in many other regions. We
центры
have
«Мой
the
бизнес».
centers that are called
Подробно об
My
этом
Business,
останавливаться не буду.
and
В
I'm
каждом
not
регионе
going
такой
to
центр
dwell
есть.
too much on
И
that, because
также
in
спектр
each
услуг, в
area
том
we have
числе
those
по проведению контактных
outlets and
исследований,
offices, and of
помощи в
course
регистрации
when we
объектов
need
интеллектуальной
to
собственности в центре «Мой
see
бизнес»
the support and such a center, which
И
is called
есть у
My
нас
Business,
некоторые
so they
региональные
provide the
льготы,
support, and there are
как
some regional
предусмотрена
quotas,
льготная ставка налога,
and we
взимаемого
have
с
the
распространения
rate,
упрощенной системы
so
налогообложения для
in terms of the
организаций и
special
индивидуальных предпринимателей, которые
beneficial tax
занимаются
rate for
разработкой
those
компьютерного программного
businesses that are
обеспечения.
involved in
Многие эти
building
предприниматели, предприятия
IT,
выросли из нашего
software
вуза, и я
products,
хочу
and
сказать, что
many of them are graduates and
наши
alumni
карельские
of our
компании
universities,
имеют
and
признание, в том числе
our,
и в Российской Федерации
let's
по
say,
отдельным продуктам.
across the Russian
Здесь
Federation, so they're
активно
being,
пользуются вот этой
let's say,
мерой
highly
поддержки
acclaimed, and
в сфере
we
налогообложения.
see that this tool, this tax
Сегодня
tool, is
звучало
quite
уже
actively being
слово
used. And
венчурный фонд.
the
Он у нас
venture
тоже
fund,
создан в
so
Республике
this
Карелия.
word
Мы в
has
прошлом
been
году
mentioned here in this
подумали,
room,
как
and
сделать его
in
работу
Karelia we
более
also
эффективной.
thought how to make it
Сегодня венчурный
more,
фонд
let's say,
из средств
efficient,
регионального
and
бюджета
it
предоставляет
gets
как
some funds
гранты,
from
но
the
небольшую часть, в
and
основном
provides the
это
grants.
поощрение за активность,
So usually
но
this is, let's say,
основное это
some
конвертируемые займы.
initiate
И
to
здесь
money
также
to,
у
let's
нас
say,
в
stimulate
соглашении
for the activity
предусмотрена,
of those
во-первых,
entities that are
регистрация
involved
РИП,
in IP, and
второе, вот вы уже
so,
говорили, я
as it has been
согласен,
mentioned, and I
очень важна
totally
экспертная
echo what you
оценка
have said, is that the
результатов
expert assessment is very vital and it's important. It's very difficult to assess it. And I think that the way for us is to get involved in the Russian Institute for Industrial Property. And of course, we would like to issue, let's say, these grants to those who have been assessed by the experts. And here we have 50-50, let's say, subsidies and from the regional budget. And I think that the SMEs that want to go into these new properties, and also another problem is that, let's say, St. Petersburg is kind of drawing, and Moscow is not that far away, so loads of people are leaving the region, and here we want to support our young scientists and students of the university. So, and there was quite substantial amount of money was assigned to provide grants to younger scientists, and now the competition has been announced, and those are going to be graduate and postgraduate students of Petrozavodsk University. So there will be such a support, and together with the university we had some work on the special contract. There is an effective contract that allows the pedagogical staff of the university, when they register IP, so they can get some additional subsidies and additional sources of money, and that's a good thing.
We have discussed the problems that are typical, this lack of human resources, this low culture, low professionalism. In many cases, we do not understand how we should work at the enterprises, and this low level of commercialization. This is the problem that derives from the above-mentioned ones. We proceed, we continue, we are quite optimistic, and last year we signed an agreement with Rospatent. We have an agenda to follow, and now hear a lot of interesting ideas from my colleagues, and will implement them in Karelia. Thank you very much. Thank you, Oleg Alexandrovich, for these measures you shared. Setting the quality, and we should spread it around the country. We should support young inventors, young entrepreneurs. And just to give my comment in terms of assessment, yes, it is a vital necessity problem, and we try to solve it together with banks and the Ministry of Economic Development. And we have a separate article that is stipulated by the roadmap designed by the government, and we promise to implement it and to work together with the banks in order to bring this to the regions and these regional venture funds, that they will have the support and they will believe in this intellectual property rights, which will be the basis. And further on, if we succeed, then we'll go further. And now I would like to give the floor to Dinar Shakirov, Deputy Minister of Economy of the Republic of Tatarstan. And please share on your experience. We know you are very developed and experienced in this matter. Thank you, Rospatent, for giving us this opportunity to present within the framework of our forum. We, in our Republic of Tatarstan, we have come a long way on development of this regional development and market, and we have a vast legacy in terms of legal provisions and commercialization of IP. In 2011, we designed the concept of IP protection, and in 2013 we came up with a long-term program on development of P. And further on, we have this sub-program on economic development in the Republic of Tatarstan for 2014-2024. And herewith it is a comprehensive continuation to support the innovative instruments of development. We have state support in IP and how we implement the rights for IP, transfer of knowledge and instruments instruments to do this. This program is the first in the country and doesn't have any analogs in the country. As a result, we have an increase of applications and for registration, and Tatarstan takes the first place in Privolzhsky district in terms of number of registered applications. And the applicants from Tatarstan, they send 79 international applications to Rospatent, and 30 out of them, despite of this very difficult year and the pandemic, still are in place. It's 57% more than in 2019, and due to Rospatent, Tatarstan, the first out of all the entities, signed the trilateral agreement on support given to intellectual property. And I would like to express cordial thankfulness to the management of Rospatent for giving us methodology for support, for giving us hand in management of IP, and support given to our invention community. And here we support the Center for Technology and Innovations. We here work together with Rospatent and the WIPO. We have 22 organizations now, and we are the largest in the country. We are the largest regional network in the country. We follow the global trends, we assess the competitiveness of the companies, and we can define the point of growth and the most prospective R&D directions. For example, Tatneft for today, in terms of patent analytics, has the best parameters of introduction and development. They register over 200 patents for this sphere. Now the company is the leader in the country in terms of applications and registered patents. If the large companies can develop such a sphere, then they have a greater potential for patent analytics, and they understand the importance of patent analytics. If they use this instrument, then startups are not that experienced, they neglect the opportunities, and the lack of awareness of young start-uppers and this lack of knowledge result in losses in market share. And within these 5 years, we tremendously developed in this sphere. We have beautiful examples based on our Kazan State University and Technological University named after Tupolev. We have beautiful cases of cooperation. They proactively participate in setting the trends in the market. We now have a new center of technology transfer based on Innopolis Center. It will result in commercialization of innovative practices and their own inventions and solutions. Unmanned vehicles, aerial vehicles, and so on. As part of this larger program up to 2024, we plan to implement digital transformation in social sphere, in public management spheres, and we pay a lot of attention to IT technologies and increase of lifestyle and quality of life. 2022 is declared by the President of the Tatarstan Republic the year of digitalization that is spread along all the spheres, including intellectual sphere. Based on the scientific center of Tatarstan, we created this competences center. We pay a lot of attention in terms of optimization of management, and we here come up with the regional market of IP, including automated interface management system of data processing and maintenance, and information analytical automated system. So we come up with a set of tools and platforms. IP management department exists from 2010 as part of registration and maintenance of data and R&D, including the elements for information transfer and bringing and processing the data of R&D. To more than 2,000 projects for more than 200 million of rubles, and these are the figures. We have all the documents well maintained and processed, and everything is kept within the archives. This national automated system of management, Tat-Patent, is in place. In 2020, the system of Tat-Patent was given the best feedback at the national forum, and we gained interest from 22 regions, and we want to implement the best practices for those interested in our product. This is a unified, motivating platform on accumulating, processing and maintaining database dedicated to the needs of large and small and medium-sized enterprises. It's a principle of one window. We have a project office implementing the following services: applications and obtaining of grants, the development of institutions, services of patent office, providing for the measures and activities on regional and state support to the enterprises and business. Managers of Tat-Patent gave support to 300 businessmen, and 51 companies were given support by the institutes for development in terms of subsidies and grants. Tat-Patent provides for implementation of social initiatives in the Russian Federation, from startup to IPO, and this is what we will focus on, develop on. We also have a dedicated direction on educational activities in IP. As for today, the above-mentioned programs were taking to more than 400 specialists from the Republic involved in IP, and we consider that this is the way to frame legal platform, legal environment in our Republic, providing for better opportunities for enterprises and business. Dear participants, dear delegates, only together, bringing our efforts together with scientific and education institutions and business and producers, we can frame the standards in digital sphere and in IP. I would like to cordially express my thankfulness to Rospatent for upscaling these digital platforms, for giving the support, and I'm sure that the common efforts and activities will provide for approving at the inter-regional level on how we should work and to bring the best practices and upscale them and to develop our activities through the country. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dinar, for your presentation, bringing your results. Indeed, you are the leaders in terms of infrastructure in the regions, and of course we will develop this discussion, but I must say, before the methodological recommendations were approved, your strategy, your initiative, your proactiveness on implementation of the instruments, on development of IP, this very careful attitude, this care towards IP, was indeed the basis to develop the sphere through the country. So, initiative by Rospatent on development of this vertical and horizontal connections. It was well interpreted in your region. And thank you for your initiatives. Thank you for your proactiveness. Thank you for your trend setting. Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to the specialist in prioritization of technological approaches and R&D. I would like to give the floor to Nikolai Popov, Deputy Head of the Project Office by Federal Institute for Industrial Property. So please share on your results. My name is Nikolai Popov, Deputy Head of Project Office of Federal Institute for Industrial Property, and I would like to start with this morning inquiry and add some positive vibes to our forum. So today in Russia, indeed, we have quite a large market of consultancy service, and we are very proud of it. We, the Project Office, the Federal Institute for Industrial Property, they contributed to transformation of such activities. We see how our industry develops, and it is not worse than global analogs. Further on during the day, we'll have an international session, so we do not fall behind. One of the results and successes of our forum that we have the diversity of consultancy and services and products. We know the companies, we know that they're very proactive, and therefore we are very happy that in Russia this market is blooming, is successful. And thank you one more time for your comments and for praising us, and that proves that any challenge we tackle, we start with cleaning, with getting to this zero level, to the scratch. We want to build this new comprehensive system from the scratch in any problem. And this is how we start, and it is well known. So information is the basis, and this protection of information is the basis in patent analytics. And this is the valuable resource, and this is our initial resource that we work with. This patent information consists of valuable information, financial information, technical information, and so on and so on. So we structured what kind of information we work with, then we put away this patent analytics and information, and we start with defining the list of problems that we are to solve. Frankly, we can skip this slide because the previous speakers defined the problems and goals and challenges. Will not react to everything, but this is the case. We construct a plant, and we need to understand what kind of technologies we should use. R&D. A lot of universities, they go through a lot of patent applications and registration, but we don't know how good these patents are. So this is what we do. We offer support to the largest companies in the Russian Federation, but we understand what the regions need. And now we have this discussion brought by the region, so we know your needs. Therefore, we came up with a number of initiatives, and we started implementation through the regions and in the regions. And I've been to the regions, and I'm very happy to see the representatives of the regions. But I would like to give the example from Mordovia Republic, one of our projects with the name the development of industry-oriented patent landscape. So what should we do? First of all, we define the strategic documents for the region that set the framework for development of technology. We understand their perspective markets, the goals, the diversification, production cycles. Secondly, we look at the core enterprise of the region, the industry, the plants. What kind of industry plants? What do they do? What do they produce? So how they fall within the regional agenda? Then the third focus, what are the innovations and inventions in the region?
So we do it quite actively, and we see that when all these three pieces come together, we go into the patents for 3 to 4 to 5 industries or technological specializations of the region, and we do that to assist the government of the region to provide this highly detailed information, what's up with the technology in the region and this landscape, kind of landscape survey, as we call those. So they are step number one for us to get the snapshot of the region. And after these kind of landscaping work, we look into the users and apply to the users how to utilize those products and information that we have accumulated. So here we see the increase and more R&D, applicable R&Ds, and of course the assistance with law and legislation protection in the external market. So of course there are different streams of activities, and quite notably is that we as the active executor, but still we cooperate with the expert community and SMEs, and if such a project is successful, and we do understand that we help the region and we see that there are some shoots of development, we introduce a more elaborate product, the Center of Excellence in the region, and I think that they need to see and how to work on the content of this work, and this region should bring in their own competencies, and they get this, let's say, program for free, and our partners also learn from and become part of this program, and then the regions understand their demands and they see them clearly, and we arrive at the unit of the Center of Excellency, the Regional Center of Excellency, and this is an autonomous office, and so they are able to finalize a lot of work. And another aspect of our work is cooperation with some educational institutions, and when we speak about the centers of excellency, yes, and Sergei also mentioned, I mean, the Yuri named a few concepts and projects which have started their own programs. And here we have the particular group of users, be it, let's say, manufacturers or some service sectors. So they can walk along this route with us, because the specialists need to understand what this region needs, and of course they need to have a specialized look at the industry where they're involved, and of course we are looking for better lives of our people, and at that I would like to adjourn my presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Nikolai, for this quite proper presentation highlighting the, let's say, what's necessary, and being very to a point. And thank you for introducing the strategy and introduction of such a strategy of the development of these regions. And as the IP mechanisms travel across the Russian Federation, I would like to give the floor to Ivanova Marina, the head of the IP mechanisms and the development of the regions. regions. So this is your presentation. Thank you very much, distinguished moderator. So my presentation is going to be echoing what has been said by the previous speakers, because in our entity, and I represent the analytical department and bureau of the, which is the branch of the Federal Institute for Industrial Property. So we're going to, of course, share all the challenges that we face that are common to all of us. And the overall introduction would be that very few regions are ahead when we speak about the IP activities all across the Russian territory and the Russian Federation. And we see that, let's say, the 222, so if the 162, so this is the you see very low numbers of efficiency. I'm not going to compare it with Korea, because they have more than 30%, or Japan and China. So, of course, unfortunately, this is going to be the tipping the scales in their direction. But still, we may focus on some of the positive sides. And, of course, there's potential for further development, and each region is having its own potential. So what's being done to assist the regions to develop IP projects, so that those projects are not being developed just for statistical reasons and for mere bureaucratical, let's say, accounting. So we have this number of that aspect, or let's say this amount of, let's say, this technology. So at the end of the day, we need to work for the better of the region and to build up or ramp up the GDP, or even the gross regional product, because whatever you're doing before you step into the market, so these are your costs. And let's say if you optimize your costs, and whether you're utilizing these, let's say, you need to look into the what way, how are you making money after you ran into some expenditures, and of course you need to look into the profit side. And of course it has been mentioned by Yuri Sergeyevich at the plenary session. So of course this should be a tool for just extra profit, not just a way to report to the top authorities that you are involved in this or that program on the IP. Two projects that are being done under the aegis of the Rospatent. So this is the WIPO, WIPO project, and we have more than 100 of such projects, and some are being carried or followed up by our analytical office, and these are the recommendations by the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation to build the IP management system in the regions. Why do I want to draw your attention to this particular document that was concluded between the Center, Rospatent, and the regions? So within this framework, we're doing the analytics, quite a substantial one, significant one, and we dig deeper with the regions along when they're building their strategy for the development, or when we think about the sphere of IP. Of course, this is a way for us to provide our view on the structure of the document and to look into the KPIs. And the special attention I would like to draw in terms of these trilateral or bilateral let's say agreements. This is not an abstract document. There is a monitoring of the development of the IP sphere and 10 KPIs by which the region tracks, and the body or office that is set up in this region, they track the development of IP. And the key indicator here is the use of the IP rights and the commercialization of the IP rights. And unfortunately, it doesn't have a KPI which is of the percentage of profit. But it means that currently it was very difficult to introduce this parameter. However, the discussion was on, and as it's been stated, the assessment of the intangible assets, of course, it's quite a challenging and debatable issue. It's a moot point, and the federal standard on the intangible property, of course, it calls for additional work, and I think that there's lack of trained personnel, of course, is an issue here. And when we speak about 172 programs, all these programs were launched to provide regions with adequate information on the patent registration, and this information is quite inclusive, and it gives an idea in its holistic way of where the trends are. But this is not enough to identify the technological niches for the region, and the development of the IP rights market, as it has been stated, requires further, much deeper study. Unfortunately, these programs are not cure-all, and our experience shows, because it's been going on since 2013, because the access to patent information by itself is not enough. So the patent analytics is required, and of course the much broader view, a much broader way should be applied here, and in this region we need to address those concepts, and not only building the infrastructure, and not only understanding the methodological base on patent and analytics, not only building the digital system of management of rights, but many other aspects. And if we look at the slides, you're going to note that 43% in terms of the patents, so this is Moscow and St. Petersburg, and Moscow region. Yes, so you see we have 85 regions of the country, 85. So this means that very few regions in the Russian Federation, especially beyond the Ural Mountains and Novosibirsk, I'm not speaking about Novosibirsk, I'm not speaking about several other regions of Siberia, which are quite on the learning curve, so to speak, in terms of the IP development. And nevertheless, when we analyzed not only the 10 pilot regions, we have the trilateral agreement was conducted with 10 pilot regions. So, and all these are the regions in the corner of the slide, top corner of the slide, and we're trying to assist those regions with implementation of such recommendations, and other regions as well. So based off of these recommendations, they had this activity, and the 48 regions of Russia have a dedicated office responsible for the development of the IP, and I think that this is quite a good point, a good trend, and 65 regions have different programs of financial support to the development of the IP. And once again, all those stages and steps that, let's say, fall into the cost side of things, of course, they need to be studied and registered. And of course, we want to go into the good economic effect. And here we have the challenges that arise. Let's say we have some challenges in terms of the legislation and economic assistance, which is not very efficient, and the way such mechanisms that are being used in terms of the taxes and subsidies. And when we speak about the support, that's we need to build the offices, the centers, the consultancy that will be able to reflect on the capacities that this or that entity has at its disposal. proposal, and I would like to once again reiterate that it's an important process, and in a true way we do need to develop competencies, and these regions or regions in general just don't have enough capacity and manpower and the talent to go full swing here, because we're understanding that after the research that has been done, about 300,000 specialists in the Russian Federation, so this is the demand of the IP sphere, so that this sphere would be developed evenly across the country. Unfortunately, we don't have 300,000 specialists at the moment. And I'm going to skip some of the slides in terms of the programs. Yes, 176 programs, but not all of those programs are fully fledged programs from the standpoint of their work. So, of course, some of them are done only to be like channels of information, and that would be the end of it. But in some larger institutions and universities, which have the which become these centers for information transfer. And I would like to stress here that on the political level, and it would be reasonable from the standpoint of making money on the basis of the IP, we need to look into the support of the transfer of technology, and we have 18 regions, 18 universities actually won the grants by the Ministry of Education, and some of these programs might bring together these institutions. Unfortunately, another area of brokerage of this within this field is quite an area that needs to be further developed. And but there are some good examples of some regions. There are 2 regions in Russia that signed up this this program first, and we have Ulyanovsky Oblast. So this is the region which is quite actively developing IP at strides, and this is one of the regions that concluded this trilateral agreement, and they have studied thoroughly the strategy over their development within the light of further development of the IP. And from the standpoint of support to the IP sector in this area, and so they started to develop innovative voucher program, and I think in a true sense, this had a good influence on the commercialization of the results, and it assisted the SMEs of the region to further develop. And so what is this program? It's not a subsidy, not a grant. So these are the funds that are being allocated to support the registered patent, and be it the smaller model or some useful models or prototypes. And of course, it's quite a short period of time. Within 3 years, it can be recovered through the needs or from the proceeds of the results of commercialization of this, let's say, innovation. And of course, still we need to figure out how this voucher can be issued, but nevertheless, it's an interesting approach. And Ulyanovsk district, Ulyanovsk Oblast is the leader in that. And a lot has been said about Tatarstan as a republic, and I would like to point out that we're quite actively being cooperating with this region, and this is one of those regions that was among the first ones to conclude this trilateral agreement. Of course, they didn't need any assistance from us in terms of developing the strategy, because they have their own strategy. And nevertheless, there are different projects that we've been discussing with them, and being in full cooperation, I would like to know that this is the kind of region that is quite active in patenting, and they are quite active in building infrastructure, IP infrastructure, and that's not the end of it. So what's more important is this is the, let's say, copy of the slide that is published by the main office of Tatarstan, and back in 2017 they studied the number of businesses that gave such good results, and this means that if there's good system of tracking the IP, so 1 ruble of costs into the IP brings 75 rubles of net profit. That's just great. And I would like to urge you to think on such a subject. So when we speak about the roadmap for, let's say, further development of public or intellectual property, there are some 30 tools, and the patent box is one of those. For example, you have the quotas on the tax benefits on your profit, and of course the income tax that may be reduced to 3%. And I think that this benefit is exercised by the regions, and the regions themselves can either apply this or not apply this measure, but it's not a question how it's going to work. But what's more important is the system of support, be it the tax support or any other innovative program to stimulate commercialization. So these tools would generate revenue for the region. And as an example, simply because the Tatarstan representative decided not to, let's say, show this slide, and I would like to still talk about this patent and analytics, we need to say about the information that's being issued and analyzed should be properly systematized and put together as an analytical report, and of course only after that can it become such a great analytical tool. And so this is a quite efficient process. All right, I understand about the timing, and we're going to share the presentations. Yes. Yes, and to conclude, yes, I would like to say that we provide information support, and we have Rospatent tab and over there, and recommendations of the Ministry of Economic Development, and we are providing within those 15 information systems a particular one that is going to have the regional panel, and the regions are going to learn what's necessary, what's relevant to them. And starting from last year, we are publishing the materials not only on the patent activity results, but also on the usage of these activities in the region. So you see all these tools available. I do hope that you're going to use those.
Спасибо за такой обширный доклад по всем мерам.
Thank you very much for this very dense presentation and giving this diversity about the regions, and I'm sure that there is a strong interest from the side of the regions. And now we have 2 presentations left, and we'll have the official event ahead, so we are falling behind the schedule, and my bad as well because of my comments maybe. So right away I give the floor to Anton Pankratov, Deputy Chair of the Committee of the Tula region on Science and Innovations, and Larisa Alyoshicheva, Head of the Department of Management of the Results of Intellectual Activities. Tula is not only about the regional brands, but it is about the production and military and defense, very strong technological competence, and it is very important important to understand the verification in IP and the corresponding spheres. Speaking about diversification as part of military and defense complex within the IP, it is difficult without the expert, and therefore this presentation comes in two parts. I will bring general information on the events spread in the region, and Larisa Ivanovna will speak about the details in promotion and development in the sphere of military and defense. Our region is strong in military and defense and metallurgy and chemistry. Therefore, patent analytics and IP are their priorities. Therefore, we came up with a strategy on development of science and innovations up to 2030, where we stipulate the development of patent activities, the increase of patent applications, and moreover, the events focusing on commercialization of IP projects are defined as priorities. We in the region developed and successfully maintain the instruments for development of science and innovations. First of all, the only scientific and education center, the only in the world in the sphere of military and defense, Tula Tech. It consists of 11 branches of science and education institutions, 16 business units, and every project has the preparation and approval of patents and registration of patents within each particular technology. We need specific instruments that will allow to commercialize patents. And it is very important for military and defense, and it is important how to use the technologies in civil operations, and Larisa Ivanovna will speak about that. Tula region also implements the infrastructure project, creating infrastructural sites by 2024, having special focuses on IP rights, protection of IP of the participants of this project. Tula region implements a number of state support, and this year we launched projects to support young scientists. We have contests providing grants, institutions to give support to small and medium-sized business, IP protection measures as part of Center for Support of Experts from Tula region. As for support given to diversification in military and defense, I want to give more details, and here I would like to give the floor to Larisa Ivanovna. I am indeed a patent attorney, and I actually know what we talk about. Our government in the region, and this is the same for all the regions, the government comes a long way in order to implement this practice of patent registration. And our major industry, defense industry, it has quite a large potential. We have human resources potential. We have senior experts, and they know how to word the applicants, and they have quite experience from all times. But of course, we cannot focus on inventions only. We cannot focus on patents only. We need to understand the useful samples and the industrial samples. And therefore, I want to speak about international statistics. Previously, it was brought that we have 10,000 packs of population, and Chinese system has 30 plus. In Tula, we have less than that. If we look at the global markets, Asia is developing dramatically, and Europe and America, they're quite sustainable. Russia takes the 7th or 8th place based on statistics of the recent years, but the gap is dramatic. If China produces 1.5 billion of useful models, Russia, we sent 37,000 applications, and we have only 1/3 of residents. 2/3 are international producers. This is the statistics that are brought from the website. So if we take the distribution, if we consider the invention activity, then Russia takes only the 18th place. I carefully listened to the previous speakers, and I want to comment the following. Rospatent is beautifully operating. The website is the best, and I work with websites, and it's much better than Chinese and American. And I work with these websites. Thank you very much. So this Rospatent website gives all the needed instruments and how to work with analytics. It gives access to all the global websites. And our government gives a lot of opportunities in terms of education and training. But what do we lack? And I here come from the point of view of a working professional, of a practitioner. The object of intellectual property must be created by the author. At the enterprises, it comes another way. First, it comes with the inventor, and then the enterprise registers. And still we lack any legal act on this type of inventions. So a human being must be willing to invent. And for example, from our enterprise, we derived from giving awards for inventions, and therefore we started having no applications for registration of inventions. So we need to support it from the very bottom. But could you please name the award? Polytech University comes with about 60 applications. No, the reward, the methods are different, and I will speak about it a little bit later. You need to choose the model, and that is also something stipulated by law. So we need to promote and support this activity. We at our enterprise, we have a lot of professionals and specialists, and it is true for defense industry. This is the problem when they start to diversify and bring it to other industries and do this knowledge transfer. Then this is a matter of author rights, of IP rights. The law doesn't give the precise understanding of how we should work when we bring these inventions and IP from defense industry to other industries. It is not stipulated and worded well by the law. So there's a gap. We need to consider this. So this is the holding of the rights. There is a discussion. Now we follow the way when we face the situation. Right now, the rights for IP mostly are positioned as the rights of the state owner, and therefore the enterprise doesn't have a motivation to develop such inventions. We cannot register them, we cannot put it into the sheets because there is then a question how to bring it in terms of accounting and so on. So we need to regulate it. Right now, the federal law has been approved, and the Article 1240 to precisely define the IP rights as part of the state agreement with the funds of the state consumer. So this is very strict, and we expect to have this regulation that we will follow and how it should be taken. And there is a matter of how we should send it to the President of the Russian Federation. It is quite a long and time and effort consuming way. So what do we face? We do not develop the renommee of the enterprise. When we speak about patent, from one side it's about income, but then from another side, let us not fall into the costs. So in many cases, if we don't get through patent, then there's a question whether the market will still exist. And if we go to the trial, it is very difficult to get it through the court, and therefore we have cost risks. There's in many cases there is no way to prove the efficiency. In many cases, we have very long terms for registration of the rights, and I personally work with the Ministry of Defense. It takes too long. Then the question of the author's reward, the rights of the author are not stipulated, and the civil code stipulates that the right to obtain this award is given by the employer. And there is, in many cases, there are no employers, there is no interest to motivate, there is no interest, therefore, to create, to invent, and therefore, author is the basis. If the author does not create anything, then we, as centers of innovations and R&D, will not have anything to register. If we speak about university applications, they have a lot of IP to defend, research for grants and so on. So if we speak about defense industry and enterprises falling within this industry, it is a matter of authors, whether we have the authors and what do they do. In former USSR, it was such a strategy, it was a provision, and there was calculation of award, and we had the first place in the world on the number of inventions and applications for registration. Then there is another issue on how to assess the award. Basically, it's coming from the average minimum salary. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I think it is the agenda that is worth of a whole independent conference, not just a session. And I must say that it is a lot about wording and framework, and we speak about the roadmap. Yes, there is a room for such discussions. We enter this era of framing our sphere, so let us bring these issues to the discussion, and let us all discuss it and contribute to the better environment. And now I'd like to give the floor to Irina Ilyina, Director of the Russian Institute Scientific and Research Institute of Economics, Politics and Law. So what we do, we understand that IP is a basic core of politics, and we are much interested in what kind of effects we have based on the results. Speaking about the regions, what the regions need. And here we speak about IP and IP management. This increase in gross regional product, new jobs, new renommé, reputation development. Here, the slide brings the strategic documents that stipulate science and technology in the country, and we see the strategy where it goes. We understand the state programs bringing all the instruments to implement science and education and technology policy. And this, the national project, science and universities. We now understand the framework and the parameters and the key indicators. We see the dynamics of the indicators and the total amount of applications. Russia by 2030 must come to the 10th place in terms of patents registered with exclusive right. 9,000 by 2030, the surplus in patents 0.5 by 2024, the number of national technologies with the R&D in demand by the real sector by 2030 at 288.8, and the share of innovative production developed with the use of results of IP with the rights owners of Russian origin by 2021.18. And this correspondence of national and export technologies, we don't have these figures here in this slide, but there is the focus given to this issue. And as for this correspondence of export and import of technologies and services, 0.94 by 2024. Annually, we have this so-called atlas of IP, including the parameters of IP activities, and we prepared ourselves for this panel. We studied the list of participants, and therefore we bring the figures for the regions represented.
So here are some four main points. So these are the applications, and then this is the share of the regions in the overall number of such applications of the Russian Federation and Tatarstan. So you see that it goes down in 2020 in the, let's say, if we compare it with 2016, but the share remains there. Kemerovo, the share stays 0.7. And Tula, here we see the decline in the overall input into the, let's say, Russian way in Mordovia and Karelia, so they remain in the same level, and the number of the home technologies, and we see that the distribution in Tatarstan in 2020, there was a little bit of the share remaining, but the number of applications went down a little bit, and in Kemerovo there was a growth 1.4 in the Tula region. So you see that the growth 1.8% of the overall input in the overall parameter for Russia, and Mordovia going down 1.1. In Karelia, growth of 0.4%. So what we're speaking here about is regardless of how the number of these application changes, so the most important factor is the percentage that it occupies in the overall number for the Russian Federation that we monitor. That's very important. And then we can talk about the indicators that we calculate separately, is the, let's say, portion of the products that have been manufactured or provided based off of the patents registered within the country. And here we see the Tatarstan with the growth, and Kemerovo, it's minute growth over there, and the Tula region, yes, maybe these programs do yield some benefits and good results. And we see that here is some good volumes over there compared to 18. There was a little bit of a sagging there in some parameters. And Mordovia, yes, of course, they promised to work on those as we can confer from the presentation of today. And of course, when we speak about the technology and the rights for the intellectual properties, and here we see the Tatarstan going down, the growth in Kemerovo and the Tula region a little bit down, and the Mordovia going up here, and Karelia is the republic. We see that it jumped up in 2019, and the colleague told us that they have projects, so because they're increasing their production. And on top of just registering these parameters, we need to analyze them through the light or in the light of the development of the overall market of innovative technologies in a particular region, and we consider the development of the IPs in the regions, and we monitor the processes of the market, and we analyze the ratings and the ratings of a particular region. In some of these ratings that we cover the whole federation, the whole territory of the Russian Federation, and of course being transparent and sharing these results through the media is very important, because it's going to lay the foundation for further cooperation with the larger community, not only within the expert community, but bringing in more SMEs, and in this way we get the analysis region by region. And it's important to note here that the analysis of the specializations of the regions and geographical locations, scientific potential of the region is quite important, because the Ministry of Education wants us to mitigate the programs for development and the technological policy here, and to train the desired personnel for a particular industry. And of course, we see that there's much disbalancing in some of the regions, and it affects the social development of that particular region. And of course, we do the analysis and provide the analysis of the policies that were adopted on the territories, including the special tax regimes that are available at the territory. And of course, I would like to say that together with our colleagues from the FIVIP, we putting together the index of the development of the region, and resources, results, and efficiency of work. So we put into the resources the personnel, the patent attorneys, and those people who are putting together these results, and they analyze the structure, be it the research labs or some special technoparks, R&D centers, and also the volume of financial support from the budget of the region, and some other sources. Some programs are available. Okay, how do they use these programs, and how does it influence the development of the market? So we do these analysis, and there is demand for this information, because the region is quite interested. They have vested interest in to learn what kind of volume they can get from those programs, and how to properly utilize those tools. And the results, of course, you can see for yourselves the applications, the technology, international applications, and the effects. Yes, using the IP and the proceeds from the export of this technology and the profit that we have there, and non-tangible assets, all these things need to be accumulated. And the new trend is the development of creative industries. When we say that there's 50% is being generated by the non-balanced assets in this particular company. So for IT, it's very important, because our colleagues are sharing some of their ideas how these particular tax measures can be applied, and each region has some unique feature, because they can become the centers of concentration of new, let's say, revenue.
Здесь представлены некие профили регионов. Вот посмотрите, некоторые показатели мы здесь также
And some of the regions demonstrate Tatarstan, for example, within top 5 on multiple ratings, and this is block number 2. So this is the investment climate in the region and the development of the region at large, and the ratings on the social economic development. And I would like to say that getting back to the first blocks of the structure and resources of the region. So, for example, the number of the researchers by 10,000 in the economy of the region, and we see here that Tatarstan ranks top, and the red is the dynamics of this. This is the trend parameter. The Kemerovo, 10 by 10,000 employed. The number grows, and the number of companies going down. And Tula region, you see that the quite significant numbers over there by 10,000 of population in the industry. We see that this is the negative dynamics in Mordovia. Yes, in terms of the number of, let's say, programs of research, and we note some positive trends, not in bigger numbers, but still there's positive dynamics there, and 23 institutions are doing the research in Karelia, and we note the negative trend. However, the numbers are, let's say, not as significant. And in terms of infrastructure, I can say the following. So having the proper infrastructure doesn't guarantee the efficiency of work, because we analyze the parameters that reflect the efficiency, the number of applications, for example, and the proceeds and profit that they receive, and the export of technology. So you see that the export of technology through the international contracts in Tatarstan 6.5. So unfortunately, the trend is down. In Kemerovo, $2.8 million, and also going down compared to the previous trend. And Tula, 50 million, 0, and there is a growing trend in the Mordovia, is the number up on the screen, and Karelia, $1.9 million, a little bit of a decline there. And we can also check out how institutions and universities work, and this is the profit by the Ministry of Education. So we see that it's quite actively developing sphere in Tatarstan, and we see that compared to 2019, there's a twofold growth of profit through the right application of IP, and Kemerovo, we see the decline, quite significant decline over there, but that's preliminary data. And Tula, we see some kind of downward trend, and you see 2020 is the preliminary number, is going to be updated, and in Mordovia there's no information, so we need to work there. And in Karelia, just a little bit downward indicator, about 4 million. So you see, these are the numbers that we received. On the one hand, they reflect that the work is on, yes, and they're focused on working with the IT and IP and the merger of technology. And so some technology can be of course, studied in a particular way, so that we'll be able to make some further decisions. And using this analytics, we put together a roadmap on how to utilize the IP potential of the region. And depending on the particular stage of development of the region, we're building the pool of ideas. And these are the indices on how we operate in a particular region, and the legal framework of IP in the region, and also synchronization and updating the programs for personnel training in the region.
Я завершаю последний слайд. Ну, опять-таки, интеллектуальная
And to
собственность
conclude, the IP is quite an open window of opportunities here, and some regions are quite actively developing, and some of them in the middle of this route. And of course, we need the support from all these agencies, from Rospatent, from FIP, and we're going to prepare some recommendations given the tools that are available within the state program of assisting the AP development. And of course, we need to synchronize our efforts with the tasks of the state, because when the region understands what kind of role they play among other regions within the country, they would understand their potential better. And I would like to finally note that we're developing our cooperation with the Moldovan government, and we have such an agreement, so that as a pilot region, we're going to try out the pool of solutions that will be able to deliver, and we invite all the other regions for cooperation. Thank you. So thank you, Elena, and I think that Mordovia is on the rise, so the only region with growing, let's say, indicators. And so we have a very good and important official aspect of our program, our panel. So of course we have a lot of issues for discussion out there, and I think it's important to note that there will be a special signing procedure between Mordovia and of the Institute of the Economy and Law in the IT sector, and the Federal Institute for Industrial Property. So there will be a signing ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, to improve in the Republic of Mordovia and to assist the development of technology and IP development. The Republic of Mordovia and the Russian Scientific Research Institute of Law and Intellectual Property have reached an agreement to sign the contract, and we are present at the signing ceremony between these institutions, the Russian Institute of Economy, Policy and Law, and the Ministry of New Technology of Republic of Mordovia. So we invite to the podiums the director of the Research Institute of the Economics, Policy and Law in the IP sector, Elena Ilina, Ministry for Science and New Technology of Mordovia, Kabaydulin Igor. Please sign this agreement.
We
congratulate the participants on the signing of this agreement.
Спасибо огромное за внимание, за участие.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that this would be a good idea to kind of conclude this particular session of our forum. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to thank all the speakers. Best of luck to you, and best cooperation, and the open horizons for you to the further innovative development. Thank you.